What is good, Spuds? This is your man, Jesse White Deer. Welcome to the Needless Potatoes podcast. Today's special episode is a wrestling episode with the Fragmented Luchador, the one and only, the pride of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Mr. Chris Lawson is on the show. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we sit and we talk about wrestling, a little bit of WWE, a little bit of AEW, and we, touch on the on Chris's band, Fragmented Tranquility there at the end. So a little bit of fun for everyone, and shout outs to all of you guys out there in quarantine. Hopefully you're all doing good. Hopefully everyone's staying safe. Shout outs to all the essential workers out there. Thank you so much for all that you guys do. And so I hope you thoroughly enjoy this special episode of the Needless Potatoes podcast with me, Jesse White Deer, and the main man, the Fragmented Luchador, Chris Lawson of Fragmented Tranquility. Thank you so much, everybody, and you guys have a good one.
Hey, yo, Spuds. This is your man, Jesse White Deer of the Needless Potatoes podcast. I am joined today on this special wrestling episode by a good friend of mine, the Fragmented Luchador, Chris Lawson himself. Chris Lawson, everybody.
Hey yo.
That's an old school Razor Ramon. Hey you.
Yeah, exactly.
But the reason I called you one to have you on this this wrestling episode is I know that you and I had talked before in the past, about wrestling. And it seems like every time we see each other, we talk about wrestling. And you already know I deeply love professional wrestling, as you do as well. When what are your first earliest memories about wrestling, like watching wrestling or anything?
A lot of my wrestling memories come from just watching old school like Mid-South wrestling, Junkyard Dog, stuff like that with my nana. She was huge into wrestling.
Oh, okay. So okay, all right.
Yeah.
So you're going way back, with Mid-South and with Bill Watts and Junkyard Dog and all those guys.
Yeah, exactly. Like when the Von Erichs and stuff.
The Von Erichs, okay, the Freebirds.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. All right. Okay. So if I you would know Bill Dundee and a lot of those guys, right?
Yeah. I mean,
oh man.
A lot of the ones I know are, of course, are like Hacksaw Jim Duggan, a lot of the legends,
I gotcha. Yeah. Very cool, man. Well, awesome. All right. Well, I thought not to no disrespect ever, but I didn't know if you were just a WWE guy.
No.
You talk wrestling and then you start spouting off the Midnight Express and their matches with the Rock and Roll Express and Jim Cornette and Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and then people are like, "What?" I just now bought a John Cena shirt, so
yeah.
nothing against the John Cena fans out there.
Yeah,
but anyways, so kind of getting into it a little bit. Who are some of your more favorite wrestlers? Maybe one from the past and one currently.
Well, a lot of my favorites were Jeff Hardy and Sting, and of course the Big Show, or at the time he was the Giant. Stone Cold Steve Austin. A lot of them early guys in the WWE, aka WWF at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But and then currently, I mean, it kind of goes in between a lot of AEW, and it kind of varies from each one. I mean, of course I like Cody Rhodes because Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, was one of my all-time favorites. And then you got Ric Flair, the Nature Boy.
Yeah, of course.
He was one of my sorry.
Oh, good. No, go ahead, man. I'm interrupting you.
But no, the Ric Flair was always one of my Nana's favorites, and she always talked highly about him and how much uh she always wanted to meet him and whatnot. And
Really? Okay,
yeah,
that's weird because it seems like a lot of old school wrestling fans, with like NWA and Mid South, they wanted to kill Rick Savage. Right?
yeah,
I'm sorry, not Rick Savage. Well, not Rick Savage, but Rick Flair. Please don't kill Rick Savage. But whoever that may be. But
yeah,
no, about the Four Horsemen and with Tully and Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, Ole Anderson, and of course the man Ric Flair.
yeah,
Man, his a lot of for all those of you listening, definitely check out some of his matches with like Dusty Rhodes, and I think he has one with like the Junkyard Dog on there. But yeah. Anyways, kind of transitioning into what this is all about. Ronda Rousey made the headlines there on the Twitterverse. Apparently, she had some unkind things to say about wrestling and everything. But to kind of preference, she essentially just said that wrestling was fake fighting, and that she had a lot of fun with the girls and hanging out and stuff, putting on fake fights, which is highly disrespectful to a lot of people. And I think she was complaining about being on the road for like 200 days, being away from her family, and she said that the fans were like finicky or they were fake and they didn't appreciate her. And Ronda Rousey, for some of those that you don't know, she was the first women, the inaugural women's bantamweight UFC champion. She was the Strikeforce champion before then. She was famous for going on the streak of just first round arm bars. She has wins over like Misha Tate, Sarah Kaufman, Sarah McMahon. Just kicked open the doors for women's MMA. This really did great for that sport. A lot of great things for women, so on and so forth. And then she was coming off of a skid to both knockout losses to Holly Holm and then to Amanda Nunes. Then she's transitioned into wrestling. Now, and that kind of comes into the whole like fake fighting or putting on pretend fights, and then says that the WWE fans were ungrateful. I'm trying to find the exact quote. But what are your thoughts on there, Mr. Lawson? What do you think about what she said?
Well, I don't know. I just every time I hear that word fake fighting or it's not real, it's yeah, there's a lot of things in wrestling that are staged, that are, playing to the crowd or, whatever. But a lot of that stuff you can't fake. And I just can't get over the fact that she said that. I mean, it's like she did it.
Well, yeah, and then she did it, and not only that, but she was getting like an undisclosed amount. I think the rumor is like a couple of million for fake fighting, unquote, quote. And she was on, in her comments about being on the road for 200 plus days. There are a lot of not only women wrestlers, but male wrestlers that have been on the road for decades, for years, for just beating up their body, and for me, like it was. I'm a huge fan of like boxing and MMA, but I was pro wrestling had my heart originally, when I was first coming up, and everyone knows it's fake. You know what I mean? You're not kidding anyone there, but that kind of I look at wrestling like it's theatric. Sure, it's like a movie playing out in front of you, or it's like a stage theater, but there's also a lot of risk involved in it. If you take an outside dive and your person, like with La Parka, the La Parka, not the original La Parka, but I think it was the AAA La Parka. He took a dive to the outside, broke his neck and ended up dying. And you hear just, with Stone Cold, he took a pile driver from Owen Hart, shortened his wrestling career. So, and there's just been a lot of wrestlers who have been hurt, and there's nothing fake about that. You know what I mean? There's nothing fake about, being like, with, a perfect example would be like Draws, who took unfortunately took a power bomb from D'Lo Brown, who had no history in the past of being unsafe or anything. It was just kind of a freak accident. I think he was going for a running power bomb. He had slipped on like some soda or slipped on something, and then Draws landed on his neck. Yeah, and then he's paralyzed for life. So it's like there's nothing really fake about that. And for her to say like, to kind of disrespect a sport that made her money for one, and got her, and obviously she's popular and she had money and stuff from the UFC, but the WWE, I think, at least for me, like everyone knows about like pro wrestling, about like Hulk Hogan or like The Rock or Stone Cold or whatever it is. But I think that MMA and the UFC, it's still on that kind of, it's gotten a lot bigger, definitely in a lot of years, and a lot of people know what it is.
Yeah.
But pro wrestling's more recognizable. You know what I mean? And it's like, WWE took a chance on you, and it's like, and not that I'm a big fan of this guy, but like Triple H laid out that match for you at WrestleMania, because she debuted at WrestleMania. He laid out that match for you, and then it was like, so you have all these people helping you, but kind of, what are some more thoughts about that? Why I look for these quotes.
I don't know. Like, it's just, she sat there and she, like you said, she's getting paid to do something. At least she could do is appreciate the fact that they're letting her do it. And they even basically gave her the title, and she held it for so many days, and, she had a good run, but, and then here comes the man.
Well, can you maybe shed some light on like what like a title means in wrestling, like in WWE?
Like a title, I mean, not just in WWE, but having any title in any of the wrestling affiliations, it's a high sense of regard. You're looked at by all the other wrestlers, be like, oh, okay, well, that guy is a force to be reckoned with. But like her, she came in basically as like a friend of Triple H or something like that.
I think they had a relationship before that.
Yeah. And like, basically they gave her everything she's had, and then she's going to sit there and slander it,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, and it's and kind of I'm trying to find the original quotes, but this is what one of the quotes, not the original, but one of the ones that I'd found where she was kind of responding, because obviously she made those comments, and that didn't sit too well with numerous wrestlers. You think of guys like Mick Foley, Cactus Jack, Dude Love, Mankind, who just destroyed his body, for years. ECW, WCW, and then his WWE run. You look at guys that are just beating up their bodies for years and years, and to kind of for to say these things, that's just a big slap in the face. So obviously, a lot of people responded to her. Some in like not a PG way, but a lot of swear words. And and by the way, you're free to say what you want. If you want to drop some F bombs in here, that's cool too. But this is what Ronda had said. So it's using the hashtag kayfabe killer. It says anyone who is outraged by me calling pro wrestling fake fights for fun, that is has never been in a real fight. While you all are tiptoeing around bruising some pro wrestlers' soft egos, huge soft egos, no one is thinking about all the real fights you're insulting when pretending pro wrestling is somehow on the same level of realism. Yes, I understand wrestling 300 days a year for years on end is incredibly tough on the body and a difficult profession. But do you know what would happen if you got into 300 real fights in a year? You would be dead. And I'm going to kind of pair that with Alexa Bliss, who's been, a five-time, WWE Women's Champion. She's been kind of one of the more driving forces for like the women's division. Her stuff with Charlotte and like Sasha Banks, and she's just had just incredible matches. So go check all those out. But so this is what Alexa Bliss had said. She had said that she has a lot of respect for Rousey before saying the following: "I don't like when people use the F word. When people say fake, because that's what we do is not fake." And then in quotations, Ronda has accomplished a lot in MMA. She came into our business and everyone was more than accommodating, more than wanting to see her succeed. It's kind of that thing where it's this is a two-person thing. Every match that we have, you're only as good as the person you're out there in the ring with. So those are kind of two back-to-back quotes. What do you think about that? That kind of sums up what you and I have been talking about, Alexa Bliss there. But what are your thoughts about Alexa Bliss kind of having to come out and say this?
Yeah, I mean, she's been, she started off in in the indies, she was doing good there, and then she came as like a little manager for Buddy and the other guy. I can't think of his name. I can never think of that guy's name. But she came in, and then once she started actually wrestling, she was always such a spectacle to see. She was this little bitty girl contending with all of these other, bigger, like Charlotte Flair and the Man. She's dealt with all these people. Nia Jax,
And who is the Man?
Well, the Man, of course, she's Becky Lynch.
Yeah, there you go. But
the Raw Women's Champion.
Yeah, and arguably one of the best women's wrestlers out there. But it looks like Alexa Bliss is listed at about 5'1", and she probably hovers around the maybe 110-pound mark, maybe 105 pounds. So it's like she's obviously a smaller athletic woman, but it's like so and that kind of leads into the next thing I was going to bring up, and we had talked about Nia Jax, where there was, I believe it was on, I can't find the audio, but there was an interview that Nia Jax was doing. Well, I don't know if it was an interview, but it was more of a everyone was just her and some other female wrestlers were hanging out, and obviously they were talking about this Ronda Rousey situation, and Nia Jax was talking about Alexa Bliss and saying that like, hey, there's somebody that had hurt a friend of mine, and somebody that wasn't a safe worker, and somebody that was so on and so forth, and somebody that was obviously not being a safe worker in wrestling is it's a big deal, and it's like with wrestling, you're going out there, you're trusting the other person with your body. It's like if Chris, you and I have a match, I trust that whenever you give me a suplex or you give me a clothesline or whatever it is, or you throw me to the outside, I'm trusting you with my body, and it's like
exactly
exactly, and it's like can you kind of talk about like how important that is for wrestling? Because I know that you've had some aspirations about being a wrestler. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, like you were saying, when you're going out there, no matter who you go against, no matter how big or how small, or even if they're your size, no matter the size of that person, you got to account for, not only do you think, treat their, I'm trying to think of the word now. It's kind of like the, eye for an eye thing, treat somebody in the ring, just like you would treat yourself. If you don't want to hurt yourself, you don't want to hurt that person either, because you're not only hurting your career by the fact that you hurt that person, but you're hurting that person's career by possibly injuring them, or, giving them an injury that they can't come back from,
Mm-hmm.
and
yeah. I'm listening. Good.
There's a lot of people, that we've seen go, a lot of amazing wrestlers go through the road, go down the line. And then, you got Paige, she was doing awesome in her career. And then all of a sudden, sharp kick to the back, stopped her career almost indefinitely,
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's like you look at like Bret Hart, who suffered a concussion, by the hands of Goldberg, and you look at what Sting, who took a buckle bomb from Seth Rollins, and that kind of cut his WWE career short. Although I think Triple H was had that golden shovel out there, so I think he was going to cut that short regardless. But that's another podcast. But yeah, man, it's it's just one of those things of taking care of your opponent is definitely very important, because like you had touched on, it's if you're viewed as like a safe worker, if people say, hey, you know what, you can work with Chris, he'll take care of you, you can get your spots in, meaning, you can get your moves in. So like if I tell you, hey man, I do a really good, flying crossbody, I'd like to kind of work that in. And then you would say like, oh, okay, well, oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I do, a pretty good super kick. I kind of want to get that in. And it's like, we talk about it, we go over it, and it's, but if, you don't take care of me, then that looks bad on you, probably more and worse than me. Even if I don't get really, really hurt, people look at you and say like, oh, well, Chris is unsafe. Like, don't work with that guy and so forth. But kind of, and this brings up Nia Jax, who, and this is what she had posted on Twitter, it looks like about 2 days ago. She says, I can't wait for Ronda to one day return to WWE. Even if WWE orders me to make Ronda look good in the ring, which is the only way for Ronda to look good in the ring with me, which is that's kind of funny. I'll risk my job to go down to history as the one from this biz that knocked her the fuck out. And it says #test me bitch. So some pretty PG-13 stuff there, but it's and it's and I think I would be really interested in kind of a shoot fight with Nia Jax, Ronda Rousey. I mean, I think that would be interesting. Yeah, but who, I don't know, who knows where we'll go from here. I think that Ronda definitely doesn't have a career in WWE anymore or pro wrestling anymore.
No,
and
even if she did, she's got that huge target on her back now, that stigma that she created for herself, that everyone's not going to look at her the same. They're going to look at her as, oh, you're just doing this for the money.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's like it's kind of they're going to look at it like ungrateful, because it's one thing about wrestling fans is they don't really they don't forget. And it's like, you can kind of be, maybe you can do that in other sports. And I think that, Vince McMahon definitely, I think he would take her back. You know what I mean? Like if next year's WrestleMania, if she comes back and says like, hey, give me, I want to come back, I think Vince McMahon definitely would let her back. And whether that's a good or bad thing, I don't know, but I think the opportunity is there, at least from the higher ups with Vince McMahon, but I don't know if that would I don't know how well that would go over. But anyways, kind of transitioning here. You said that you had kept up with the last night's episode of Raw. Can you kind of clue us in, give us the highlights, and we'll go from there?
Yeah, well, like first match, you had Asuka versus Ruby Riott. You know, it was a qualifying match for the women's ladder match for Money in the Bank.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Asuka, you know, far and away is one of my new favorite, you know, she's one of my favorites in this new roster. She's ever since she's came on the scene, she's been, you know, just amazing at what she does. You know, she's comes from Japan, you know, where, you know, they don't discriminate in wrestling, you know. Women will wrestle the men will wrestle the women. It doesn't matter the size, you know. She's coming from a hard area. And then you got Ruby
Shoe
Riott.
style. Or
Yeah.
what is it? It's not shoe style. It's shoe style, but it's can't think of the thing that Shinsuke always says. Drawing a blank.
Yeah,
but anyways,
here.
yeah.
Like,
But
yeah.
go ahead. But don't want to. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, it's all good. But you know, a lot of there was a couple of matches in this thing that were some qualifiers. They did the Kairi Sane Nia Jax match, which it was kind of a squash match, sadly to say. With Nia coming over, but and then
I'm sorry. You cut out a little bit. Can you go and repeat that?
But you had like Kairi Sane versus Nia Jax, and which sadly to say, I hate to see Kairi Sane ever get under, but you know, Nia Jax, it was kind of a squash match, sort of, kind of, because Kairi Sane's a little bitty thing, and you got Nia Jax, a 6 foot, you know, irresistible force, no, something like that.
Unstoppable force, yeah.
Unstoppable force, that's the one. You know, she that's exactly what she is. You know, Nia Jax, she's been away for so many months, and she's finally come back. And you know, she is a good wrestler. But the one thing about her is that she's hard to take down, especially by the littler wrestlers. Littler, you know, littler women,
smaller wrestlers, yeah,
smaller wrestlers in her division, you know. But and then the main event, you know, you had Andrade versus Drew McIntyre, the new WWE heavyweight champion. You know, thank God. I mean, nothing against Brock Lesnar, but I'd much rather.
Let's talk about that a little bit. So Drew McIntyre, he had won this year's Royal Rumble, and he had, in the process, he had eliminated Brock Lesnar. And I think that I like Drew McIntyre, you know, and I like definitely this new repackaging. You know, I think that he's got a great look, meaning that like he looks like an intimidating guy. You know what I mean? Like if you didn't know he was a pro wrestler and he walked into like a bar or, you know, or someplace, he's like an intimidating dude. You know, he's
I mean, they don't call him the Scottish psychopath for nothing.
He was great.
But
definitely, so they don't, you know, they're not calling him Junior or anything else, you know. But yeah, so Drew McIntyre is like, you know, he has a great look, you know, he works really great. I think that his, you know, his big boot is like is fantastic, you know, and I really like a lot of things about him, and you know, and he is the current WWE champion. What would you like to kind of see from him in the future?
Well, you know, unlike Brock Lesnar, you know, I mean, I'd like to, with any champion in the WWE, I always like to see someone who will day in, day out, each night, you know, be willing to put it up, you know, and then, you know, be a working champion, not just a part-time champion, you know, like Brock Lesnar or whatever. But
well, yeah, and okay.
Drew McIntyre, even in NXT, he was just, you know, he was day in, day out, night after night, just devastating, you know. And in recent months, up until, you know, up until the moment of Royal Rumble, he was he was put in the undercard, and that's not somewhere where somebody like Drew McIntyre needs to be. He's a big guy. He's not that undercard guy. He needs to be in the high up main events,
Yeah,
And-
he's a top guy, to kind of borrow a term.
yeah.
Well, yeah, so kind of touching on Drew McIntyre here, it's he had the Chosen One gimmick. I think the first time around where he was kind of he was looked at as like a possible top guy, like like, all right, this guy might be something, and then that kind of fizzled out, and then he was in 3MB with Heath Slater and
Mahal.
yeah, Jinder Mahal, and then and of course, and then he goes to Independence, comes back. Like you said, he was the NXT men's champion, and then now he's the WWE champion. What are kind of like some matches that you want to see? Like maybe a rematch with Brock, or is there maybe another somebody else? Maybe like a returning Kevin Owens. Like what kind of programs would you want to see in the future?
I used to bash on Kevin Owens so bad back when he was in Ring of Honor. He was, but then again, you think of Kevin Owens, he's a dang good worker. He
Mhm.
he plays the bad guy really well. He's kind of like Chris Jericho.
Mhm.
He who can play good and bad, but he's always better at being bad.
Mhm.
Which I guess the better term would be is he was heel, not face.
Mhm. Oh yeah,
But
yeah, definitely. I had been following Kevin Owens when he was Kevin Steen on like Ring of Honor and a lot of his early stuff. He had a great program with El Generico or Sami Zayn. A
yeah.
lot of that Ring of Honor, yeah, and then he had a good series of matches teaming with the Young Bucks. So yeah, no, and I think that Kevin Owens is. For me, I would like to see that because it's like now you have Kevin Owens, but then you also have Drew McIntyre, who are kind of two very different body styles, but they have a lot of the same style, different body styles, I should say, but they have a similar wrestling style, I think. And I think that I really hope that Drew McIntyre is, the quote unquote, the a top guy for a little bit, and I think that I would like to see some stuff like maybe Big E or kind of going down the future or going down the line, or maybe some stuff with my man Kofi Kingston. Who knows? What do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I agree. I think speaking of Big E, Kofi Kingston, I like the New Day, just as much as anybody else out there. But Big E, when he was a singles wrestler, he's a big guy, and then he's been put in this New Day. Which again, like I said, I like New Day just as much as anybody else, but he's just been kind of shoved into the tag team situation, and he hasn't been given a chance to get the Intercontinental or the US. He hasn't been given a chance to get in those higher up titles.
Yeah, like a
But
singles title.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so I think it definitely would be a good look. Because we've seen that Kofi Kingston can definitely get over by himself. Kofi Kingston, who had won the WWE title, and then of course, or not the WWE title, the WWE title, and then of course lost it to Brock Lesnar, and then Brock Lesnar, of course, lost it to Drew McIntyre. So it's kind of one of those things. But it's I definitely would like to see a program with either Kofi Kingston or Big E. Sorry, Xavier Woods. I know that you're just kind of compared to the two. You're just kind of, I don't know.
Xavier Woods, when he was in Impact Wrestling, TMNA. He
Yeah,
was
he was.
Austin, and he was under the name Austin Creed. And then when he finally came over to WWE under NXT, he had the whole Black Ranger stick, as he said, his honor roll before he would do it, he did the it's morphin time, which don't get me wrong. I mean, that's a cool little thing, He said he was trained by Zach Taylor, the Black Ranger, but which is pretty cool, it works, but Xavier Woods for me has always been that, mid Carter. Maybe one day he could get like the Intercontinental or even like the Cruiserweight,
Is Xavier Woods that small? Is he a cruiserweight?
Yeah, he's in the Cruiserweight realm.
Oh, okay. I always thought he was a little bit bigger than that. So yeah, got me here there. But yeah, so kind of transitioning here. You got any more thoughts on WWE before we switch over to the other brand?
I'm gonna say, unless you got any other things.
No, I mean I'm just kind of looking through looking at Xavier Woods because I thought Xavier Woods was a singles champion in WWE, and it looks like he is not. He is obviously
I think
he is. Yeah, he's a 6-time tag team champion with the New Day, but no singles run there. So maybe in the future. Although he had a stellar tag team with let's see, pull that back up. I can't. Sorry for everybody listening. I have a really shitty memory, so some things I can remember, some things I can't. But lethal consequences with Jay Lethal. So
yes, I remember that. Okay.
Yeah, over there in TNA. So Jay Lethal is. I think it always strikes me as odd that Jay Lethal doesn't have a position in maybe like WWE or AEW. Maybe he just doesn't want it, or like at least NXT. I mean, I can kind of understand, but it's. I think Jay Lethal is one of those guys that's out there that's.
He's
Jay
very
Lethal's underrated. Exactly. He's a veteran. I don't think that he could like go in and be like world champion. I don't think that, but I do think that he definitely is a great mid-carder. I think that he is a guy that you could look at it. You could put like maybe the Intercontinental title on him. Don't please keep him far away from the fucking 24/7 title. Sorry, R-Truth, but I love the R-Truth. Yeah, but it's just or an AEW. If they're, I think the rumor is they're thinking about doing like a TV title, or yeah. So it's like, or he'd be a great North American title or more North American champion in NXT. So yeah, no, and I thought Jay Lethal's run as the Black Machismo was amazing, but. Anyways,
my favorites is Jay Lethal moments was when he did the Black Machismo coming out, and I was like, "Oh man, bringing back movies, man."
Yeah, with Randy Savage, yeah, definitely, man. And but kind of switching over, it's been confirmed that the Revival, as they were known in WWE, the Revival is they did not renew a contract with WWE. They turned down an extension with them, and then now they're going into the independents. I think that they had filed a copyright for their name, the Revival, and their singles names. They are now known as the FTR. Kind of, what are your thoughts on that? On the Revival not signing with WWE and then going trying their hand at like the independents.
Oh, sorry.
No.
The Revival has always been, they are an awesome tag team. They work together amazingly. And Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder, they've been together for a while now, and they were NXT. They were the champions for quite a while.
They were the Triple Crown champions. They've won
Yeah.
belts and tag belts in the NXT, SmackDown, and Raw. But
yeah. But yeah, they have all this acolytes in being a tag team, an awesome tag team duo, and I'm honestly happy that they're going out and trying their hand in the independents, or maybe moving over to little AEW.
Yeah, maybe. Well, it's and it looks like but yeah, they definitely had the Revival had Triple Crown champions, as we had mentioned. They had they were the I think they were the Mechanics maybe when they first came into NXT. But yeah, they've had just great programs with a lot of the some of the more prominent tag teams there in NXT and WWE. I think with what was it, DYI? And then, yeah. So and then the Arthurs of Pain, and then they excuse me. But yeah, and of course the Hardy Boys, the Club, the New Day. So it's like, and they've definitely had experiencing wrestling the kind of top WWE talent there. But kind of going to AEW, I think that for me, I think that I think it can either be really good or it can be really bad. I think that I share the same sentiment that you had said, is that the Rival is awesome. I think we both agree that they're one of, if not the best tag team, I think, out there, and that's in wrestling wide. They definitely, for me, like I can, and you had mentioned that you being a fan of like a Smoky Mountain, or not, Mid South Wrestling rather.
Yeah.
They remind me of like a Brain Busters with Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard, like kind of a no nonsense, kind of old school, just rough and rumble style. I think their moniker was no flips, just this.
Yeah, no flips.
And yeah, exactly, and it reminds me a lot of like the Road Warriors or Doom or some of those kind of bruising tag teams, and I really appreciated that kind of that old school feel. Let's say that they do go to AEW. What programs how do you think they're going to do, for one? And what would you like to see match wise from them, like opponent wise?
Well, over in AEW, they've got, Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian, and of course you've got
I see you, yeah.
Yeah.
Scorpio Sky's also in that as well.
Yeah, I always forget that guy. He's a newer guy to me. I always remember the older guys.
You're good, man.
But and then you've got, like, I think the current tag team is Kenny Omega and Adam Page.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then you've got, there's many. Of course, you got the Young Bucks, and and I could see, the Revival definitely, contending with those guys. I can arguably say, that all the tag teams that I just mentioned, even the Lucha Bros, are all some amazing tag team, contenders. And then to put the Revival in there, or FTR, whatever they're going to be this, Jungle Boy and
Luchasaurus.
Yeah, I mean, you've got many awesome tag teams over there, and I mean, just adding the Revival, that just adds that one more, just another amazing tag team. And one thing I've noticed with AEW is they don't slander anybody. They always use somebody at least once, at least once or twice each show. And I mean,
go ahead.
I mean, I've never seen anybody not get used at least once or twice. They always just at least show up.
Yeah, well, for better or worse, yeah. I think in the I think one of the first AEWs I watched with there's that guy with like no legs, and then there was I think they were in that battle royal, and then
Yeah.
so for me they've kind of made a little goofs here and there, but I think that's okay for I think you're gonna as like a startup wrestling company, you're gonna kind of have a little bit of misses, I think. But I think some of the things, and I'll talk about the FTR here in a second. But one of the things that's lacking for me in AEW is the lack of like kind of tag teams. You know what I mean? Because you think about with what you had talked about. You had mentioned with Mid South Wrestling or like Smoky Mountain Wrestling or NWA Wrestling, a lot of those kind of old school tag teams, as you had like, you had the Midnight Express, you had the Rock and Roll Express, you had Doom, you've had the Road Warriors. God, you've had Harlem Heat, you have, with the Brainbusters back in NWA, and it's like, and so it's like you have a lot of great tag teams, and I think that and WWE, I think, can use a revamp on some of their tag teams as well. But AEW for me is, I think they have the opportunity, especially with if they're going out and like recruiting with the Briscoes, with the Briscoes, and I think that well, keep wanting to call them the Revival, FTR. I think that they would have a great series with the Young Bucks. I think that the FTR they're veterans, and I think that they have a certain style, but I think they can definitely make either the Lucha Brothers look good. They can make the Young Bucks look good. Anyone that they have a match with, I think they can make look good. And I think that the Young Bucks would definitely benefit from that kind of style, that kind of change up.
Sure.
Yeah, especially since they're a lot more about like flipping and kind of more of the high spots type of wrestling, which I think is good or bad. It's it has its positives and negatives, and of course, like old school wrestling style has its positives and negatives as well. But I would really, I could really appreciate that kind of contrasted styles, and especially with Adam Page and Kenny Omega, and you had and we had talked about the Jungle Express with I think that'd be really cool with kind of see those guys work with like a guy like Jungle Boy, who definitely is extremely talented. And with Luchasaurus, who's just, for
massive.
For a massive guy, he is.
He surely moves.
Phenomenal. Dude, he is excellent. And even having a match with SCU, I think SCU, the Young Bucks, and I think those are the two tag teams. In my opinion, I think that they would have the best chemistry with. But I hate to say it, but for me, just keep those guys, keep FTR, the Revival, whoever, whatever you want to call them, keep them far away from the Dark Order, because that is just a.
Once you get in the Dark Order, that's a hole you don't want to go down.
Well, not only that, it's just, man, I've never been the biggest fan of Player Uno or Evil Uno. I think Stu Grayson is fantastic. I think he is great. I like his kind of like Kratos look there. I think that's really cool. But man, I think that Player Uno is a great talker. I think that he's good on the mic, but not a big fan of the guy's wrestling. But that's just me. What do you think about Brody Lee, or AKA Luke Harper, coming and being announced as the Exalted One over in AEW?
To be honest, I am actually excited because Luke Harper, to me, in WWE was always underused. He started in the Wyatt family.
All right, great.
and then finally later on down the years, they get, he's with Eric Rowan as the Bludgeon Brothers, and they have that small little Raw Tag Team Champion run, and that there showed the raw power and just the his ability to work, as even just a singles guy, because Luke Harper, he always to me just stood out from the Wyatt family. Of course, you've got Braun, you've got Bray Wyatt, but out of the two others, Eric Rowan and Luke Harper always stood out to me for other reasons.
Oh no, I agree. I think that I wholeheartedly agree. I think that Luke Harper was definitely underused in WWE. I think that Luke Harper, or Brody Lee, as he's known now, I think his pairing with Eric Rowan as the Bludgeon Brothers, I loved. I thought it was awesome. I thought them being Raw Tag Team Champions wasn't long enough, because I think that there's an issue that sometimes if you have two big guys like that as a tag team, it could work if you have the right chemistry, if you have the right approach, and it could definitely blow up in your face, because you don't want to put two big guys together just because they're big. I think like one perfect example of it working is like the Brothers of Destruction with Kane and Undertaker. They're two big guys, but they both can work. Kane can work. The Undertaker, back when I don't want to say back in my day, don't want to do that, but
it's going to stay with the same age.
Yeah. Are we? Are you? You're 30 as well, huh?
Yeah. I turned 31 this year, actually.
Oh, well, happy birthday, man. I don't know when your birthday was, but happy birthday.
It's in September. I turned 31 in September.
Well, all right. Well, happy early birthday then. But yeah. Well, yeah. Then so you know what I'm talking about. It's like you've grown up and you've seen like. And by the way, I know we're talking about AEW, but I geeked out when Undertaker brought back Biker Taker for that match with the club.
When the American Badass came out, I popped. I was like, oh, yes. I was
for sure.
excited for it. The American Badass, when he first was introduced, I was like, finally, something different from, the usual run of the mill, walked out, take 9 years to come out to the ring. I'm sorry, Undertaker, but it takes too long. And she had the song change.
Sorry, Mark.
I mean, it was cool and all, it was cool and all in the 80s, in the early 90s, but then in the newer age, when finally he did the American Badass, it was just everything that I could have always wished for that he would have done,
Oh, for sure. Well, and I think that Taker was the only guy to ever make Limp Bizkit cool. So,
I always like the stigma of Limp Bizkit. So, I like all music, but yeah.
Okay. Well, that's fair. But no, when he came in on the motorcycle and then Roman hit, keep rolling, he's driving to the ring and shit. I think that was awesome. I think Biker Taker was excellent. So for me, I think Undertaker should have stayed retired after that match with Roman Reigns. I think that was definitely a great passing of the torch. But I don't know, man. It's really hard to tell people, especially professionals, and I'm sure obviously the Undertaker knows what he's doing, but I just, it's kind of a sad sight to see, man, especially being such a, and I'm still a fan of the guy, to see what he was able to do with like the Ministry of Darkness back in the Attitude Era, and he was like a cult leader, and he was a mortician, and then he's a dead man, and then he was an American Badass, and then now I guess he died again, and then he was the dead man again, and then but to see all that and see such a storied career, and it's just kind of, I don't know, man. It's that's, let's see, but switching back over to AEW, I think that here's my thing about the Dark Order. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts. But I think that the Dark Order definitely had potential. And I think that it was a good idea. And I remember seeing those promos of like, joining the Dark Order and stuff. And I remember watching it and thinking like, okay, well, they have the right idea. And I was waiting for it to like transition into something else. And for me, it never got out of like first gear. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it never like I think it's a hell of an idea. It's a hell of a gimmick, to kind of have this kind of like cult, this cult that's worshiping and that's taking word from the exalted leader, and and then player Uno or evil Uno and they're just lonely peons, like they and the true orders come from the exalted one, and they have the creepers, and they made that weird looking chair and human chair, and then they beat up young bucks. I think like all that was great, but then it just it never got out of first gear. You know what I mean? Like it was, and we've seen like cults that gimmick in the past. Especially with like mentioned Ministry of Darkness, kind of newer age with like CM Punk, where he was the I guess he cured I almost called him Festus. Luke Gallows.
Luke Gallows, yeah.
Yeah, he cured Luke Gallows from being Festus, I guess, to be in his straight edge society. I don't know. And then he had what's her name? Can never remember her name.
AJ Lee.
AJ Lee, yeah. And then he cured her, and then shaved her head and stuff like that. So it's like that was cool. And then so was like the White family. But I think that for me, I think that AEW, or at least with Evil Uno and Stu Garrison, is like they could have borrowed something from those. You know what I mean? And I think that every great thing in wrestling is borrowed. It's borrowed from something, whether it's movies, television shows, whatever. It's borrowed from something.
Yeah, I
mean, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, like, I've personally always liked that darker sense of, the darker side of wrestling. Like the Dark Order, they have that stigma of, we're this, and here we are, and it's a cool stigma, and it definitely gets people's attention, especially in that in All or Nothing, that first pay-per-view they had where they just all of a sudden it went black, and all of a sudden you see all these people in the ring, and then this guy is sitting on this human throne, and I'm like, what the heck is that? Mm-hmm. I mean, it definitely caught my eye and caught my attention, but
exactly. And it was something different. And, and at least, you can see all these guys dressed in like, black clothing, and they're wearing masks, and you don't know what they look like. And they're like the attack dogs for, excuse me, for the Dark Order. And it's like, had to burp real quick.
it's all
for the Dark Order, and it's like, but then the Dark Order is taking their orders, pun intended, they're taking their orders from the Exalted One, and then it's like the Exalted One is, and it's Brody Lee, which is cool, and I think that I don't think that the Dark Order should have ever revealed who the Exalted One was, or at least not for a long time. You know what I mean? I felt like that's something that they could have built towards. And then it's like, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, they definitely could have waited, I'm glad that, Brody Lee is in AEW, but the way they could have went about it is a whole nother way. They could have did a whole, they could have drawn it out a lot more, is what like you were saying, maybe not this face right quick off the bat, or kept it very cryptic, like like kind of like they did back in the day with in WWE with Mordecai, I don't know if you remember who that guy is, but
yeah, that was Kevin Thorne.
He was supposed to be the taker beater or something like that,
Yeah, he was going to save us. Yeah, he was like a religious zealot, and he was going to save it. He came out in all white, and then he was going to save us from the Undertaker, which I'm glad he didn't, because I, that was one of those things where I was going to say, like, please don't. We kind of like Undertaker, so
Yeah.
we're not you so much. We no, just kidding. But no, but yeah, and I think that I would really like to see Brody Lee transitioning into kind of more of a like a Monster Hill champion, or a Monster Hill for like someone like Cody, or for like and now the new AEW champion like John Moxley, is
Yes.
to kind of see the kind of build up towards that, to see like and I hope that they can kind of I hope that he's not tied down, bogged down by that the Dark Order gimmick.
Yeah.
Shout outs to Jim Cornette. Every time I hear his podcast, he makes me laugh because he says he calls them the Dork Order, which is
The Dork Order, yeah.
the Dork Order. That's kind of humorous, but no, but the Dark Order,
Yeah.
not gonna slander their good name on the show, but the Dark Order, there. I hope he's not bogged down by that, and I hope that Brody Lee is able to transition and be kind of opposition for either John Moxley or like Cody, or even Jericho when he gets back from tour, or well, I guess he's not touring, but whatever the hell he's doing. But yeah, so I think that'd be really cool, and I think that he could be a good opposition to like the Inner Circle. I think that he could have a good match with I guess it's not Jack Swagger, but Jake Hager.
Jake Hager,
No.
yeah.
Yeah, he could have that'd be an interesting series of matches there. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
I agree. I mean, Jake Hager, always for me, he was always he had a good shtick about him when he was in the WWE, and then when he comes, he went and did the Bellator for a little bit, and I guess he's still doing it. I guess.
I don't know. I watched his first fight, which was awesome, by the way, because R-Truth came out and like rapped his theme, not his theme song, but like rapped a song, and then Jake Hager came in. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And then of course WWE punishes R-Truth by having him get knocked out of the Royal Rumble by Nia Jax, but whatever. I think that was a little bit too convenient, but whatever. Yeah, I think that I think kind of moving forward, I think AEW definitely has some good key players. With like obviously Jericho, who's a veteran, who can definitely help Tony Khan, and then and all of that, and of course you have like Arn Anderson in the back. You have guys like Jim Ross. You have Excalibur, who's had some history on the Indies. You have Tony. Man, can't think of Homeboy's last name. Tony Schiavone. Yeah, Tony Schiavone.
Yes, hey, Schiavone.
It's Schiavone. Yeah, can't forget that. But it's like you have a lot of veterans, and of course you have like DDP. Cody Rhodes, who, in my opinion, is probably the best thing about AEW.
I
next
agree.
to Jericho.
I agree.
Yeah, but it's like you have all of this talent, and I just really hope that they're able to transition that into, because I don't think that they would ever beat WWE. I don't think that's ever going to happen. No matter who you are, no matter what happens, I don't think that you'll ever, because what we had touched on earlier with the Ronda Rousey thing is that if you just say WWE or WWF to somebody, they know what you're talking about. It's recognizable. They know that you're talking about pro wrestling, and they know that you're. It's easy recognizable. It's like the NBA, the NFL. You're never going to take down WWE. But what you could do is you could definitely provide a nice alternative to WWE.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested. And one thing for me, I know that they're on TNT, but I would like to see AEW kind of push that line a little bit and kind of get back into, and I think that the what they have like the record system where it shows the win and losses. I think that's a good idea. I don't know if it works that great for like pro wrestling, because if a guy's like, I don't know, 2-6, and then he's getting a shot like at the world title and he wins, and kind of how does that make sense? But yeah. But I think that it's good because I think that AEW can definitely be a nice alternative, and I would really like to see them kind of get back into. And it's not like they have to go full Attitude Era, but I get so tired of like the WWE PG stuff. I'd like to at least hear some grown men cuss, or it's like, to kind of see, come on, it's like, if you're gonna go and like, I would, I'd want to hear somebody say, "Hey, I'm gonna kick your ass, or I'm gonna fuck you up, or I'm gonna kick the shit out of you." It's like how actual people talk, when you're mad, you're angry, and it's, and I think they're on that line. I think that they definitely have the opportunity to kind of move forward with that and to kind of get in that direction, kind of move into the right direction. I think all the talent is great. I think it was a good idea to put the belt on Jon Moxley. I think Jon Moxley is a solid worker. I think that he can kind of transition between different styles, and I think it'd be interesting to see if they keep the belt on him for a while, or if they're going to get back to Jericho. I don't know, but kind of what a little bit more of your thoughts on AEW? I guess, like, what would you like to see from AEW as a company, kind of as we wrap up here?
Well, AEW for me is kind of bringing back that old school style, like WCW. They had that. It was more based around wrestling and less about there was still promos, of course, like back in the, like any wrestling thing, you're always going to have like you're always going to have promos because that's how you build the story. But like with AEW, they have so much potential, just even in the immediate locker room, with guys like Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley and Chris Jericho and Cody Rhodes. You've got all these guys and Young Bucks. You've got all these guys here, that are basically the driving force that put the motion in action.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got so much potential there in the back. They just got tag team wise. They can. I mean, they're still growing, of course. They're not.
Sure,
But in the sense that they're still growing, they still have all this time to solidify a niche. Maybe bring in that more ruthless aggression type. But yeah, like you were saying, like Jon Moxley, he's even in the indies, with CZW, he's always been that ruthless, kind of unhinged, very, you don't know what he's gonna do.
Oh yeah.
And then finally getting to see him like let loose, and be the Jon Moxley that I've always wanted to see him be, even in WWE.
Oh, you okay there?
I just had a cough.
Oh, no, you're good. But no, I agree, man. I think that he had I would really like to see maybe he and Kenny Omega pick back up their feud.
Yeah,
maybe they could do something else, because they for those of you listening, definitely I'm not sure where you can find it, but definitely check out his series of matches with Kenny Omega, Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega. That was kind of when he first came into AEW, and they're excellent. And if you can find it, check out his match with Chris Jericho where he wins the title. So I think it's excellent. Well, it's kind of one more thought, I guess. Obviously, they have a women's division, they have a tag division, and of course they have a world championship. What's like a belt that you would like to see them add, kind of like a secondary belt? Like, would it be like a United States title, TV title, or maybe like a cruiserweight title? What would you kind of like to see from that?
I always like to see that high flying, death defying type stuff, So, I mean, I would like to see, maybe the bring back of something like a hardcore title, something where you're going to see a lot of that,
A lot of action.
A lot of action, you're going to see from the start, from start to finish, I've always liked, back when the hardcore title was introduced in WWE, freaking, it was basically given like what the 24, it was given that 365 thing, if no
Stipulation.
matter, stipulation, yeah. And I always like to see those type of matches, those heavy, hard hitting, weapons, no rules type match, but in those, I grew up on, the Attitude Era, that era where you had Raven and Jeff Hardy and all these guys, Billy Kidman and the what do they call them, Raven's little group.
The Ravens flock.
Yeah, Raven's flock.
Just
But yeah,
Incredible was in that.
yeah, Billy Kidman, right? He was also in it?
Billy Kidman, yep, and then PJ Walker, PJ, Just Incredible from ECW was also in that. But yeah, no, for sure. I would like to see. I agree. I think more of I think that AEW definitely has. There is a lot of action, especially guys with like Darby Allin, Sam Guevara, kind of these younger guys. You see a lot of the action, which if I'm Darby Allin, I'll say that. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the skateboard gimmick. I mean, I guess that's cool. It's not for me, but if I'm Darby Allin, I would maybe ease back on that coffin drop.
I was going to say that coffin, pretty devastating. And
it's pretty. It looks
done
good.
Wrong, he's gonna mess something up pretty quickly.
Oh yes, and I don't think that AEW is paying him what like WWE, or not that he would go to WWE, but like I don't know his financial situation, but I don't know if he got a neck injury and had to retire from wrestling. I don't know if he could transition into something else.
Yeah,
you can't do any kick flips if you're confined to a bed. So
yeah, exactly.
but I mean, so I think we're over an hour. It looks like so we're good. So it's kind of this test run, but yeah, man, I really appreciate you sitting down and talking with me. I know that you having two kids now and being married and working and everything. You're kind of a busy man, but I appreciate you sitting down and talking with me, though, man.
Oh, no problem, man. I mean, I always like sitting down talking to like-minded individuals.
Yes, exactly.
Especially about wrestling.
Oh, yeah. No, I could. I think that this whole thing very easily could have became a whole entire wrestling podcast, but maybe we'll do a wrestling podcast in the future. Who knows? But man, I would love to have you back on in the future. Maybe we can get together on another date and go over some more stuff.
Yeah, I definitely would like to do that. But yeah, it would be cool.
That would be absolutely, man. And to kind of shed a little bit of light on you. I know that we're not going to go into it, but we can say that for another podcast. But you're in a local a band here in the city. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, my band is called Fragmented Tranquility, and we've been together for, I want to say, we've kind of had a few carnations. Like we started off as this, and then we finally got to where we are now, and we've had a few lineup changes, but I think we're doing pretty good. I mean, yeah.
And who's all in the band right now?
Right now we've got, the main three is that's been basically the full, that's been there almost the whole time, is me, Eric Ayers, Brennan Walker. But then you got newcomers like Cody Smith and Sonny Nails, and he's our new vocalist. And Cody kind of came in and filled in for a little bit, and then our previous guitarist Marcus, he kind of stepped away during we had a little issue there.
Yeah, we don't have to get into it, but yeah, I got you. Yeah.
But yeah, we had a little issue there, and then he kind of came in and kind of took up full time. So yeah, we're going pretty good. Yeah, but I mean,
Oh yeah, man.
if you ever come out to a show, I mean, if anybody listening comes out to a show and sees a big tall guy wearing a luchador mask, just know that's me.
Yeah, and he won't even charge you for autographs. He won't go Scott Steiner on you. And I don't know if
No,
I told you that. Yeah, no, Scott
I've tried
Steiner
to
made
get.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, he made me pay $30 to like, because it was me, DJ, and my buddy Jeremy Wingard. And when he came down with IWR, they came down and to the Cur Dome in ECU. Were you there, by the way? I can't remember if you were there.
No, I wasn't at that one.
Okay, but
But
yeah, so that.
when I saw him, it was in down there. I'm trying to think. Ardmore. It was in Ardmore for the Oaklamania.
Okay.
And I was trying to get it. I was looking. I was like, how much for an autograph and a picture? He goes $50. I'm like, holy shit. And I'm like, I think
Yeah.
I'm go talk to John Morrison over there.
Well, I mean, yeah, you made a right choice. I've never met John Morrison, but I hear good things. He's I'm not a fan of. Oh, go ahead.
He's John Morrison's pretty chill.
I got you. Hell yeah. Well, he didn't try to give you a copy of his movie, did he?
No, but he was. I was trying. I'm still trying to find a copy of Boo and the Bounty Hunter. To be honest.
Okay. I haven't heard good things, but I don't know. Maybe I'm not talking to the right people. Maybe
from what I've heard, it's high action. It's very B grade action film.
Yeah, because he put up the money for the thing. So, but yeah, no, hey, yeah, definitely check that out. Support the man John Morrison. And once all this coronavirus thing, I don't want to say clears up, but once we're able to start going back into shows and everything, definitely check out Fragmented Tranquility. They're an excellent band. They're very awesome, very cool guys, and they're and you can even take a picture with the Fragmented Luchador, Chris Lawson. So, yeah, and he'll talk to you about wrestling. So.
Yeah, I'll talk your ear off, just so you know.
Yeah, there you go. But or you can, keep listening to this podcast where we're going to do some more wrestling episodes, or do both. Whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know. But yeah, for sure. Well, all right, man. Where can people find you and your band on like Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff?
Well, I'm just trying. I can't remember all of my things I have, but yeah, I'm on Instagram, Facebook mainly. And then my band is on, of course, I think we're on a lot of things, really. I think we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, I think we have a Twitter. Don't hold me to that, though.
But is it, what is it on like Instagram and Facebook?
I want to say that it's just Fragmented. On Instagram, I think it's Fragmented Tranquility OKC. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you can just look up Fragmented Tranquility on Facebook. And then we also have a single out on Spotify, all your major music outlets. It's our only single called Dreamers Die Alone, but soon, we hope to be, once all this COVID-19 coronavirus stuff clears up, we hope to be jumping in to get a EP going soon. So.
Excellent. All right. So stop bugging them. Leave them alone. They're working on it. So. But all right. But yeah. And as always, you can find me at @JWhiteDeer on Instagram, where I try to share just only the best memes. And sometimes and you can see pictures of my cat or pictures of me very rarely. Or you can find me on Facebook, and you can find this podcast, the Needless Potatoes Podcast. We're on Instagram at Needless Potatoes Podcast. Just search Needless Potatoes Podcast on Facebook, and you can give us a like You can follow us on Instagram, and you can find this episode as well as all the previous episodes and the future episodes on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Breaker, Overcast, YouTube, all that great stuff. Give us a like or give us a review. Let us know what you think. If you like something, you don't like something. If you want me to shut the hell up about wrestling, if you want me to talk about more wrestling, all that good stuff. And as always, thank you so much for listening to us. Thank you for following the podcast. We appreciate all of you. If any of you are getting that stimulus package check, do you guys have merch that they could buy?
Actually, we're working on new merch, so
they're working on it. All right, leave them alone. But save some of your money back. Send it to those guys. Pick up a T-shirt. Check out Dreamers Die Alone. And if you really want to, you can send me some money at anchor.com/Jesse Whitedeer and hit that support tab. Any amount of money is great. If you don't want to give me money, that's cool too. It's whatever. But all right. Well, thanks again, guys. I have, as always, been the Jesse Whitedeer, and you have been Chris. You've been.
Oh, and I've been Chris Lawson, the Fragmented Luchador.
The Fragmented Luchador. I like that you kind of put that twang on the end. That's pretty cool. But all right. Well, thanks everybody. You have a great day. Shout out to Colbert, Christian Colbert, and of course Logan Kyle Wood. Thank you guys for all your support. See you, everybody.